The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to Gate City Chronicles. I'm Kevin Avard, your host, and today we're going to be talking with Mark Osborne, a local attorney who is a defensive attorney. He's been on our show before, and we're going to be talking about an issue that we're all been hearing lately. And Mark, I want to welcome you back to the show.
Thank you very much. It's nice to be back.
Okay.
Hello, everybody.
And you're a local attorney here in Nashua.
Yes, we have an office right here on Main Street. We practice in Nashua. We practice in all of the surrounding towns.
And you've been in practice for how long?
We've been in practice for about 8-9 years,
right.
And I'd been a lawyer since 2003, so I prosecuted a little while before that.
I was going to say that you were a prosecuting attorney at one point.
Yeah, for about 4 years.
And then you saw the light and went to the defensive side. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
Some people call it the dark side,
The dark
so that was
side.
actually a lot nice, yes.
Is that right?
That's right.
Okay, however that works, I'm sure. Anyway, I wanted to invite you to the show, and because there's a lot of buzz about the opioid problem that we have in the state.
Yes.
And as a defensive attorney, I'm sure you're seeing some related issues, and of course the drug courts, and basically maybe you can educate us a little bit about what's going on.
Sure.
Just as of today, I believe the governor put out some type of omnibus bill, which means she just wants it to pass. She wants a new session just to pass it. But the sentiments that I'm getting from my colleagues in the Senate is, they want to have hearings on these. We want to find out what's going on,
Right.
and how can we make this effective other than just passing a bill so everybody looks happy and good.
Right.
Let's solve the problem. What are the drug courts?
Well, the drug courts are fairly new, and ironically, even though I do criminal defense and I do a lot of drug cases, I don't really have any clients in the drug courts. The criteria as to how one gets into the drug court, you probably have to talk to somebody who does the drug court every day. But basically, the drug court is made up of people who, you have the judge, you've got prosecutors, you've got defense lawyers. You have almost like a drug court committee, all right? And if someone has a case where they're on the prison track,
Right.
okay, like there may be one offense away from prison, then they are eligible for drug court, okay? And I think you have to talk to the prosecutor and say, look, can I get my person in drug court? The prosecutor has the discretion whether to say yes or no. If the prosecutor says, no, I don't think your person's eligible for drug court, then I guess you can try to make a plea to the judge. But the person gets into drug court, and what is drug court? It's really the judge and the prosecutor and a whole bunch of other people who are on the drug court committee. They show up, I don't know if it's once a week or whatever, but it's frequent and people are held accountable, all right? You make sure that the person, the defendant, is doing their drug court regimen, all right? They need to be doing drug testing. They need to be reporting to whoever's overseeing them. And there's really one rule that you can't break in drug court, as I've seen it. You can't lie. If you've reused, you have to admit to reusing, but you cannot lie. And I've seen very good judges institute consequences to people who have lied about, whether they lied about their schedule, whether they lied about how many drug meetings or whatever the meetings were, rehabilitative meetings they went to. And sometimes the consequences are small, such as, all right, what are you doing for the next week? Because you're going to be in court every day watching trials, all right? Or the consequences will be, okay, I guess you just have to go do time behind bars until you can learn to tell the truth. So it's a new process. I have to be honest, a lot of lawyers like myself, because we don't have a lot of people in drug court, it tends to be, I find that public defenders tend to have more people in drug court than not. I don't know if that speaks to that socio-economic demographic, but what I can tell you is it's an opportunity for the justice community to breathe a sigh of relief and see that we are finally, not just as a society, but as a judicial system, realizing that drugs are not, the drug abuse and drug crimes cannot be treated as though someone, broke a window or something.
Right. Now, do the courts act in this way in any other circumstance? I mean, this is specifically to drugs,
Right.
but it seems as though they're playing more an active role in the community.
Courts have started to, okay? We have, for quite a while now in Nashua, with the leadership of Judge Leary, okay? We have mental health court, all right, where the judge and the players in the justice system, we watch the people. They're monitored, okay? So we have mental health court. We have drug court now going on. I know that there's also now a veterans court. So what's happening, and it gives me tremendous optimism, is that we're recognizing that not every person is the same, all right? Not every group of people are the same, and that if you want to deter crime and you want to punish crime, then there is not any longer this cookie-cutter approach where it's either probation or jail.
I was just going to say that the drug courts seem to be more acting like a probation officer than a probation officer, which
Yes.
I don't know how effective that has been. Maybe it has been effective in the past, but
Probation?
yeah.
I would say that it is, you get mixed results, but it depends on who the probation officer is. If you have a guy who's got his last year in and he's kind of tired of dealing with people, then maybe he's not going to be as vigilant as
Right.
someone who's in the first 5 or 10 years of their career and are really looking to make meaningful changes with the people who they monitor.
We were discussing off camera a little while ago. It seems to me that there needs to be a sobering and discussion about the drugs. Obviously, there's a problem with opiates, and people have said for years, well, it's pot's the gateway drug, and some would argue, well, so is alcohol. Some would say, well, so is prescription drugs, and it seems as though one is demonized more than the other. And there was a soldier that came to the Capitol not too long ago. It was, I think 2 weeks ago. I met him in the hall, and he had post-traumatic, I don't know, I got a mental block. But he was also suffering from chemotherapy, and because he had cancer. And so his appetite was suppressed. Obviously, he wasn't eating, and he needed to eat in order for the body to get back into its functioning.
Right.
So he was prescribed pot, or THC, maybe in a pill form, and it brought back his appetite. Obviously, there's going to be side effects. There are side effects with opioids. Everybody knows that.
Absolutely.
Oxycontin, the whole 9 yards. So, but for some reason, if you have a discussion about, well, THC versus opioids, in the prescription realm, for some reason, oh, well, we can't do that. Well, why not? Which one is worse?
Right.
If it's prescribed, and it seems as though there's not an intellectual discussion over it, rather that it turns emotional. Well, what's up with that? Are you feeling the same way?
I see it. I do. And you and I were talking briefly off camera. The problem we have right now is, and the drug courts are good, they're a wonderful thing, but they're not universal yet in New Hampshire. So if people hear the word drug court, don't think that every district court is doing it,
Right.
Don't think that every superior court is doing it, because they're not. I mean, you've got a handful of forward-thinking judges who have pushed and lobbied for it, and it's finally happening. But all over the state, you have inconsistencies. Okay, for example, in one town or one city, you can go to court, and if you have been arrested the first time for marijuana use or possession, and we're talking a small amount, okay, provided you take responsibility, provided that you're working with reasonable people, you can probably expect that you're not going to get a criminal conviction, provided you talk to a drug counselor, provided you do community service, and provided that you acknowledge that while, granted, it's not the worst drug in the world, you broke the rules, and you're not any more special than the rest of us who are following the rules, okay? If you can't end up with an absolute no conviction, okay, the next step up is a violation, which is like a speeding ticket, if you will, okay? You pay a fine, and in a year, you can get it off your record. All right? Now, that's most cities that I deal with, all right? Most courts I deal with. I represented a young man who dared to go north of Concord with some marijuana on his possession. Again, small amount, all right? Now, this individual has post-traumatic stress disorder. On top of that, he has other physical ailments with his organs that cause him tremendous pain. So in Massachusetts, instead of using opioids, instead of using opiates, like the OxyContins and all these really powerful pills that dry up your eyes, make it impossible for a normal person to go to the bathroom.
Shut down your organs.
Absolutely.
Right.
He said, I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that person, okay? So he was able to get a licensed card that allows him to buy marijuana legally, that allows him to use it responsibly. It's dosed out. His doctor has said it's okay. I would rather you smoke marijuana once in a while or ingest it somehow as opposed to getting on all these.
They can have it in pill form,
right,
instead of smoking it so that other people can't.
Exactly.
But
I'll tell you this though. So he goes up, right, and he's using it somewhere, and a police officer comes around. They notice it. They arrest him. He says, but I have a card. And they say, well, that's wonderful. In Massachusetts, you use that card. But you're in New Hampshire, and even though you didn't check your physical ailments at the border or your mental ailments at the border, you're under arrest. We go to a court, and I say, listen, I know whenever people get marijuana, they do talk to a drug counselor, community service, take responsibility. My guy's willing to do all of that. The prosecutor says, well, that doesn't work here. So what do you mean? She said, well, the judge is really conservative here. It either needs to be, he either needs to sign up for a county-sponsored program, okay, in which you can't ingest any marijuana at all.
And he has a prescription.
Yep, or it's a misdemeanor conviction. And I said, well, I got him into the program. He agreed that he was going to try to not use marijuana so he would pass the physical tests and all that. Called me just a few days ago, said, I have to get the misdemeanor conviction, I suppose, because in order for me to function and not use the marijuana, I have to use OxyContin or pills similar to that. He goes, and it just messes me up. And so now we have somebody who's going to get a criminal record because that's really the only choice he's been given. Right. So we have disparities in how we're treating people all over the state. And that just needs to stop.
And for some, and I know I might just be, I'm not talking down people, but opioids are like heroin. Basically, it's a heroin derivative. And THC, which is from the pot plant. Right. And as I grew up, you know, it was, heroin was the big one, you know, with the needles. But now they've put it in pill form, maybe in doses, but people know how to work that out. You know, I've watched Intervention. They crush it up, they boil it, whatever, and then they shoot it in their arms. Mm-hmm. So, okay, that's okay because the drug companies say it's okay, but the pot, which is in drug form, there just seems to be this
taboo.
A huge taboo.
It really is a taboo.
And one is not as harmful as the other. It's not saying we're going to legalize pot, but at the same time, you can look at it and say, this is a chemical that has been produced by a pharmaceutical organization, as the heroin, and put into an opioid. And we're looking at the opioids and the prescription drugs, and we're saying, we got a problem, and it's a real problem. It's making Fox News. New Hampshire has a huge heroin problem.
We do, you know, and I think we have a huge heroin problem because we've had a huge prescription drug problem. Right. You know, you always hear people say that marijuana is a gateway drug, all right? I always find it to be kind of an emotional argument, all right? You're not going to change someone's opinion on that, right. Okay? You know, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist. All I can do is tell you that I deal with drug addicts literally every single day of my life, all right? Every single day I'm dealing with people who are addicted to drugs. Many of them now are people who are addicted to heroin. I don't know too many people who went from marijuana to heroin. I know a ton of people who went from prescription drugs and then non-prescribed drugs because their prescriptions ran out to heroin.
Right.
And you talked, I hate, it's my job. I also deal with a bunch of people sometimes who deal drugs, okay? And you talk to them and they tell you, we're able to make money and we sell drugs like heroin because we know that that's where the need is. The need is there because the prescription for the prescription drugs runs out. Mm-hmm. This idea that legislators or lawyers or judges or whatever are wiser than the doctors who say to their patients, you have an ailment that can better be treated with a natural substance like marijuana as opposed to these inorganic things developed in a Pfizer lab somewhere. There's really no basis to think that we all know better than the doctors who look for an alternative.
And really, in essence, is what they're doing is they're taking the poison out of this plant or the poison out of this plant and processing it. You're putting poisons in your body to affect, or it's not nutritional. Obviously, it's not going to help. No. But to alleviate pain or a symptom that is not something that you want to deal with.
Absolutely.
So anyway, I just wanted to touch base on that a little bit because it's growing. We have a problem. Everybody recognizes it, but there is a hysteria about one versus the other, and there has to be a sober thought about it. Nobody wants to talk about alcohol being a drug, and how I have a friend who was 20 years sober. He had a pain problem. He has varicose veins and that were hurting his ankles. And he was in so much pain that they gave him opiates.
Absolutely.
And so after it was 27 years. And after 27 years of being sober, he went from the OxyContin and he fell off. It transitioned him, and we didn't hear from for months. So and now he's back and going to AA programs, but. To demonize one over the other is not healthy, and we need to look at this in a better way. Is what I'm thinking.
I think you're right, and I think public policy has to have some kind of consistency. Earlier on I was talking about how it's not fair to have one court do one thing and another court do another. It's hard to have faith in a system that does not have consistency. I think that applies to the legislative branch as well. You can't have public policy saying, like you said, one drug is good, one drug is bad. What I think we need to do is have an honest discussion that moderation is important and that human behavior is such where you can't deal with it in a cookie-cutter fashion.
Right.
In terms of alcohol, I mean, we're really swinging in this state, aren't we? I mean, we're going to lock you up, or we're going to give you a criminal conviction if you have a joint, but we can't build enough alcohol stores and liquor stores on the side of our highways, the same highways where it's illegal if you've had too much of that alcohol to drive. So it can be very frustrating. And I'll tell you, I deal with people who sometimes engage in violent behavior. I have yet to see the guy who smoked marijuana and then beat his wife. I've yet to see the guy who smoked marijuana and then got into a bar fight. All of the...
Or shot somebody, or...
Exactly. So if you want to see how much crime alcohol leads to, as opposed to marijuana, just sit in any district court in your neighborhood for about 5 minutes. You'll see the effects of alcohol.
Yeah, absolutely. And people just do stupid things, and then they wake up and they go, what did I do?
Right.
Oh, I must have had a good time.
Yeah.
So, we were talking, again, off camera a little bit, and you're still surprised that, you're as a defense attorney, people, they blurt.
Yes.
And when you blurt, you really are shooting yourself in the foot. Even though, when I say you blurt, you blab, you say things that, you didn't mean, or it was misinterpreted, and that can be used against you from the outset. You had an example of something.
Oh, absolutely. I was at, it wasn't quite a black tie affair, because no one's going to invite me to one of those, Kevin. They're just not. But I was at an event where I was surrounded by what I thought were very educated, intelligent people, some people holding leadership positions. And someone was talking to their table mate about the heroin epidemic. And this individual said to the other one, you know what? If people are too dumb to not know to stick needles in their arms, then let them die. And eventually the problem will go away. It was a social event still, so I didn't put my soapbox under my feet, but all I could think was, you know what, pal? You better look out, because heroin is an equal opportunity killer. And if you think it's just limited to the neighborhoods that he probably finds undesirable, he's got another thing coming. You know, it might be the boy who mows his lawn that dies. It could be someone's child, daughter.
Or your child.
Exactly. And you know what? Gone are the days where the heroin user is that guy in the 70s movie sitting on the stoop. It's bankers, it's lawyers, it's investors. It's people who usually have had some kind of situation that led them to use of an opiate, and now that opiate is gone, you know. And so it's about addiction. It can happen to anyone. Granted, many of us are blessed with more safeguards than sometimes your stereotypical user. But that's what I wanted to say. There is no stereotypical user anymore, you know. But for the callousness with which people speak, I wanted to say, hey, pal, just come to court and watch, you know, and see what happens, and see how hard some of these people really try to get out of that hole. Yeah. So yeah, people blurt, but they're uneducated.
They're uneducated, absolutely. And you know, I'm hearing more and more people. You know, they're coming to the office up at the Capitol, and we had this one young mother. She knew she had a problem, and eventually, you know, sometimes these problems take a while to work themselves out. But she said, you know what, I've got a problem, and I have children. And so she put her children into guardianship while she went to a rehab situation. And she's been sober for a year or 2 years or something to that effect. And now she wants, you know, she's on the right track. Now she wants to get her children back. It's a struggle, but because the people that are holding the guardianship, you know, well, come to find out they're getting paid. So there's a lucrative, you know, I got your kids now and I'm getting paid for it. Right. And one of the children got seduced. I mean, things lead to other things that you're not aware of. And this addiction is terrible, but the consequences just keep following you and following you and following you.
That's right.
But it just troubles me that when people get into a situation where they want to make themselves better, right, it's used against them.
It can be.
You know,
absolutely.
You know, geez, when I was 15, 16 years old, I smoked a little pot, and by golly, now I can't get into the service or become an officer in the court, right, or I can't get this job because I got this record. Well, you should have thought about that. Well, yeah, you should have. But kids don't think right. No,
they don't. And you know, the science that we have, in my mind, has well exceeded the laws that were passed 5, 10 years ago. You know. Now, it's no mystery as to why sometimes teenagers and people in their early 20s act the way they do, because science and social scientists are now telling us the brain is not fully developed when you're 16, 17.
No.
In my case, sometimes at 37. But it's certainly not when they're in their late teens, early 20s. So to think that they are going to have a criteria by which to make decisions that will last their entire life,
right, it's
not realistic. It's just not.
And you know, you're looking at the politicians now, but I mean, again, those situations will be thrown at you just because they can. But I mean, Ben Carson turned his life around.
Absolutely.
And you know, obviously, if he turned his life around, and this is an endorsement for him, I support Rand Paul. I'm still supporting Rand Paul. That's who But the fact is that when he was a kid, you could have been troubled. You made some bad choices. I don't call them mistakes, I call them choices. You made some bad choices, and if you've redeemed yourself, if you've brought yourself and said, you know what, I've repented, I've turned a different way, and follow me, I can help others along the way. Don't punish them for something that you recognized, you know? You kind of hammer, what are you going to do, put them back in the same situation by not allowing somebody to succeed? You know what I'm saying? If you keep your neck on these people and don't let them turn around and make progress, you're just as bad.
It provides very little incentive for one who is at the precipice.
Right.
Saying I can go one way and make right decisions, or I can go maybe the easy way, like all the other people I hang out with, and go the wrong way.
Right.
It really disincentivizes people from making the hard choice to take what one would call the proper or the righteous
rewarding,
path.
right,
Yeah.
or a rewarding pathway, because, after all, these people are just going to step all over me anyway.
Right.
I'll never make it up into the corporate ladder. You've already got yours, and I've already screwed up, so why bother?
Absolutely. And what I find really troubling, you mentioned the Ben Carson story, and I've thought about that quite a bit in the last couple of days, because you really, one, can't get away from the story, and it's a good opportunity to reflect on what we see on the TV. Not only do they bring about the past choices that he made that were clearly not healthful to him or his community, they're kind of looking at his stellar success, all that he's done in his life, and they're retroactively saying, we don't even believe that you did it because someone of your caliber and intelligence could not possibly have made those kind of mistakes and corrected one's path. You know what I mean?
And he's done such remarkable things.
He really has.
Yeah. A simple illustration really is if you walk into a room that was just cleaned, it smells good, it looks good, but there's one piece of lint on that floor that's in front of you. It doesn't matter. Your eyes focus on that one little piece of lint. No matter what the square footage of that place is, you look at, oh my gosh, what's that?
Right?
It's a speck.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people are tripping over things. But I guess to get back to the conversation is that those that are addicted, that have tried to turn themselves around, there has to be a shining light for them, so that, you know what, if you make the right choices, nobody's going to condemn you. Let's move this forward. Let's make some better choices in the past. We're going to help you to be accountable. There has to be accountability. But as you go on, we're going to say, hey, you know what, we're going to forget that. Move forward. And that needs to happen, and across the board. Otherwise, you're just going to end up continuing to destroy lives, and we'll have reoccurring situations, I think. So.
Well, I think you're right. And again, talking about the drug laws and our drug code, if I'm just being honest, I think New Hampshire's entire drug code, 318B, I think it is, it just needs to be scrapped. All right. It's my understanding that long ago it was modeled after the federal drug laws, and you can have one illegal pill or you can have a couple of granules of cocaine on you, and it's a felony.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, in order for other drugs to be felonies, you look at one's intent. You look at the amount that they had. But I'm not kidding you. Out in Rockingham County, some years ago, I had a kid who was holding a straw for a biker club member, and it was his job to hold the straw because he was a pledge, okay, the straw by which this guy would ingest drugs. So he gets arrested for DWI or something, and the officer holds up the straw, okay, and sees a couple of granules of a powder. And he gets the kid to confess that it was in fact cocaine. They send it off to the lab. It's cocaine. We come very close to a felony jury trial in the Superior Court because of a couple of granules. Now, I'm not saying that he should have had it on him, but when we're talking about setting the laws to the realities of today, a couple of granules of anything should not necessarily be treated with the same severity.
Did he lose his property or anything?
As a felony. Well, he ended up paying me some of his property. No, he lost his license. He had to take a plea on a lesser charge, and we were able to get the case worked out. But the case would have been worked out much easier had it not been for these granules. You know what I mean? So I'm just kind of using that as an example to say, a pill, now you might be a felon, okay? A couple pieces of powder, you might be a felon, all right? But you can have, to me, I think there needs to be, we need to come up with a formula whereby we're looking at amounts of drugs and the intent on what we're going to do with these drugs, as opposed to the fact that it's just a certain classified drug, therefore it's an automatic felony,
So you're better off talking to an attorney right away and keeping your mouth shut, too, before you say anything.
That's always advice number one. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, advice number one really is stay away from the drugs.
Yeah.
If you can, stay away from the drugs.
Yeah.
But number two, anything happens, you really have to talk to a lawyer.
Right. And how did I get in touch with you?
How do they get in touch with me? They can call my office. I can give you the number if you want.
Sure.
595-5525. Or they can look us up online We have a wonderful website. It's very informative. Tells you a little bit about us, what we do. I think our cell phones are on the web page, so people can get a hold of us almost 24/7.
So it's a good thing if you have the number, put it in a card, put it in your wallet, and you never know when you need it right away.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming on the show, Mark.
Oh
I
my
really
gosh,
appreciate
thanks
it.
for having me back.
Well, we'd like to have you back again.
I'll be back.
Okay.